addressed and the agreement is being implemented. The SEP vividly mentions that two sides would engage in a migration and mobility dialogue to kickstart the process of legal migration, which is important to address the issue of illegal migration. It is our earnest desire to strengthen inter-parliamentary linkages. I hope that these ties would contribute to further deepening of Pakistan-EU friendship. Distinguished colleagues, we appreciate the European Union's efforts and contributions to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. We are also grateful for the assistance the European Union has provided to support Pakistan in tackling this pandemic, for the assistance to attract foreign direct investments to maximally utilize this facility. Pakistan offers an open and deregulated market with 100% equity ownership and repatriation of capital and dividends. Our IT sector is brimming with talent. Over the last 5 years, IT exports have increased by 151%. The EU can benefit from Pakistan's human resource in the IT sector to realize its goal of digitization. We have recently established the Special Technological Zone Authority with relaxed regulations and incentives that will create massive investment opportunities for domestic and foreign investors. Investments from the EU member states in Pakistan's export promotion zones could create a win-win proposition. Continued cooperation in this arena would facilitate further nurturing economic and trade ties between Pakistan and the EU member states. We remain committed and closely engaged with the European Commission and the European External Action Services for the effective implementation of the GSP Plus related 27 international conventions. In this regard, we have established treaty implementation cells at the federal and provincial levels, which have a vital role in overseeing and facilitating the government machinery in implementation of these conventions. Ministry of Human Rights is establishing a human rights management information system to strengthen data collection for treaty bodies and GSP Plus reporting. New legislations have been introduced to strengthen the human rights regime in Pakistan. Earlier this month, the Federal Cabinet approved the Journalist and Media Protection Bill and forced the Forced or Involuntary Disappearance Bill, Criminal Law Amendment. The Journalist and Media Protection Bill has been introduced in the National Assembly. Distinguished colleagues, in our multi-tiered engagement with the European Union, unlike others, we have always been forthcoming in discussing all issues and never shied away from engagement. In this context, we were disappointed at the adoption of a resolution by the European Parliament on blasphemy laws in Pakistan. I'm afraid that the discourse in the European Parliament reflected a lack of understanding of blasphemy laws and associated religious sensitivities in Pakistan and in the wider Muslim world. We need to appreciate the religious sentiments attached to the personality of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and other religious symbols. Like every other democratic and free society, we value freedom of expression. However, it should not be abused to hurt religious feelings of others. Willful provocations and incitement to hate and violence must not be allowed and be universally outlawed. Distinguished colleagues, our government has taken concrete steps to de-escalate the situation arising from the publication of hurtful sketches and desecration of the Holy Quran in Europe. We have firmly moved against the radical groups after the recent protests. I can assure you that no armed or pressure group is being allowed to challenge the writ of the state and dictate government policies. Distinguished colleagues, the world is witnessing the rise in xenophobia and Islamophobia. We should show common resolve to fight intolerance and incitement to violence on the basis of religion or belief. The geopolitical fault lines are not only reviving but are getting deeper. Strategic stability is threatened in almost all regions. Mutual trust and respect among states is eroding. Existing conflicts are getting complex and new disputes are emerging. Threats from terrorism are ever evolving, and challenges emanating from hybrid and cyber threats are reshaping the security paradigm across the world. Disinformation and fake news is being spread as tools of statecraft. Distinguished colleagues, Pakistan believes in the policy of restraint and peaceful coexistence. Hence, our regional perspective is guided by the principles of the father of the nation, Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who said, "Our foreign policy is one of friendliness and goodwill towards all the nations of the world." Pakistan is well poised to assume an even greater role as a responsible and responsive member in the Committee of Nations. We want to anchor our international engagement in economic cooperation and the inextricable link between peace and development. Our focus is shifting from geopolitics to geoeconomics. As an emerging market of 220 million people, 60% of whom are below the age of 30 years, Pakistan offers a multitude of opportunities for trade and investment. Anchored in economic security, Pakistan is focused on 1. Connectivity by promoting trade, transit, and energy flows among Central and South Asia and Middle East. 2. Providing economic basis as a development strategy. And 3. Peace within our borders and beyond. Distinguished colleagues, peace and stability in Afghanistan are paramount in realizing our vision of regional economic integration and trans-regional connectivity. Pakistan wishes to see an end to the Afghan conflict through a negotiated political settlement. We have long maintained that there is no military solution in Afghanistan. We remain committed to an Afghan-owned, Afghan-led peace process. Pakistan has consistently supported the peace process, and our facilitation culminated in the US-Taliban peace agreement and subsequent commencement of intra-Afghan negotiations. We believe a negotiated political settlement is the only way forward. Pakistan and the European Union have a common interest in bringing peace and stability in Afghanistan. As a shared responsibility, Pakistan will continue to play a role in facilitating the Afghan peace process. Distinguished colleagues, the current peace process is a historic opportunity for a political solution. All Afghan parties must seize it to end the conflict and bring sustainable peace to Afghanistan. There are elements both inside and outside Afghanistan which do not want peace and security. We should remain vigilant of mechanisms of such spoils. A high level of violence in Afghanistan remains a major concern. All parties to the conflict, including the Taliban, must agree on reduction in violence, leading to a comprehensive ceasefire. Continued violence following withdrawal of the US and NATO forces could potentially lead to rise in drug production and exodus of Afghans from their country. Pakistan stands as a gatekeeper in stemming the flow of illegal migrants and narcotics from Afghanistan. We've been hosting millions of Afghan refugees for over 4 decades now, the longest protracted refugee population of modern times. We look forward to an early, dignified, and sustained return of Afghan refugees to their homeland through a well-resourced and time-bound roadmap supported by the international community. We recognize European Union's consistent efforts as well as states in the Afghan peace process and its future role in the reconstruction and economic development post-withdrawal. Pakistan-EU cooperation would be important in preserving the political, economic, and social gains of past 2 decades, as well as rehabilitation of the Afghan refugees. Announcement of withdrawal of international troops by 11 September 2021 has created a situation where Afghanistan will need ever greater assistance and support by the international community. Pakistan will continue to assist Afghanistan for post-conflict development and reconstruction. We reiterate our hope that the Afghan parties will seize this historic opportunity to establish inclusive, broad-based, and comprehensive political settlement among them. Distinguished colleagues, Pakistan remains firmly committed to improving relations with all its neighbors, including India. Unfortunately, our overtures for peace were not reciprocated by India. Instead, it unilaterally and illegally moved to change the status of Jammu and Kashmir, a UN-recognized disputed territory, and vitiated the environment for dialogue. The onus is now on India to create an enabling environment. The Jammu and Kashmir dispute is indeed the single highest obstacle, biggest obstacle in the way of building a durable and lasting peace in South Asia. A solution in accordance with the relevant UN Security Council resolutions and the wishes of the Kashmiri people is indispensable. The region's strategic stability is threatened by the growing conventional asymmetry between Pakistan and India. Pursuit of discriminatory approaches by certain states to supply advanced military hardware and sensitive technologies, and adoption of offensive force postures and doctrines by India vitiate the atmosphere. EU Disinfo Lab unearthed India's nefarious activities, and we continue to EU authorities to take notice of this massive misinformation campaign against Pakistan and not let third countries misuse the name of EU institutions. Distinguished colleagues, we firmly believe that there is enormous potential in further expanding Pakistan-EU partnership in diverse fields. If I were to identify potential areas for future cooperation, they would include trade and investment, climate change and sustainable development, digitalization, migration and mobility, Afghan peace process, preserving political, economic and social gains of the past 2 decades, reconstruction of Afghanistan post-withdrawal, science and technology, education and culture, parliamentary exchanges and people-to-people contacts, and joint efforts to promote interfaith harmony and tolerance. Pakistan remains ready to play its part for positive and productive partnership with the European Union. I would like to conclude my remarks with the message that Pakistan considers the EU a highly valued partner and remains open to engagement on all issues. Honorable Chair, I would also like to extend an invitation to the F8 committee under your leadership to visit Pakistan at an early date where a warm welcome awaits. I thank you for this opportunity to interact with this August forum. Thank you. Bilateral relations, the Prime Minister of Pakistan offered assistance. They have yet to respond. But we believe that if India is not safe, we are not safe. So we are offering cooperation. Coming to Islamophobia, I do understand and I appreciate the fact that it's been said that the European Parliament has been active in pushing back this. Thank you for doing so. We are concerned with this rising trend in Islamophobia and this rising trend of xenophobia. But I'm happy to hear that there are parliamentarians in Europe who uphold freedom of expression and also are critical of hate speech, incitement, and the intolerance linked to it. I believe in tolerance. We are a democratic society. We are a democratically elected government, and we believe in human rights and and universal values. Now, number of you touched upon concern about blasphemy cases. Let me correct my colleague and friend who pointed out that the minorities in Pakistan are being sort of targeted through blasphemy laws. Just to put the record straight, there are 307 cases of blasphemy against Muslims in Pakistan and only 18 cases registered against minorities. So this perception that this law, which we got from from the colonial days, not of our creation, is targeting the minorities is not there. Right now on this table is the Mr. Lalchand Mali, who is a member of parliament representing the Hindu community and is parliamentary secretary for human rights sitting here. On this table, I have the parliamentary secretary for law sitting here who has drafted laws and is steering legislation through parliament on human rights issues, emancipation of women, women empowerment, protection of journalists. We are cognizant of your conventions and we are grateful for the GSP Plus given to us. We have benefited from GSP Plus. Let me acknowledge, and you have been magnanimous in doing so. So, we value this relationship. We want to build on what we have. We have a lot of commonalities. Yes, we might have differences, but I think a dialogue of this nature, where parliamentarians sit face to face, exchange views, is what is required in a democracy. You are democracies. You're representing democracy. Pakistan is one of those Islamic countries that is upholding democracy, constitutionalism, pluralism, tolerance is what we are promoting. And that is why I think this sitting where parliamentarians, ministers, Minister for Environment, Minister for Information, a young, parliamentarian from Faisalabad who's been elected and is, full of energy trying to protect journalists in Pakistan is sitting here.